Many thanks for staying with us. We now tell you that President of the Senate, Lakurawa, has cautioned critics against making uninformed comments on the affairs of the upper legislative chamber. Akpabio issued the warning when he received a delegation from the Niger Delta Ethnic Nationalities Youth Leaders Forum in Abuja. His remarks follow the recent suspension of Kogi Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan for violating Senate rules, a decision that Akpabio emphasized was unanimously supported by lawmakers. Expressing concern over a perceived trend of uninformed commentaries on television and social media, Akpabio urged the public to understand parliamentary rules before engaging in debates. He dismissed the saga as an attempt to undermine his leadership, attributing recent criticisms to political mischief from people who he claimed lacked knowledge of Senate procedures. Earlier, lawyer and our public affairs analyst Vincent Otaopopo shared his thoughts on this.
Senator Natasha has provoked and exciting scholastic disputations ranging from contentious issues and responses. Anywhere you go in the court of public opinion, newspaper stand, that is on the lips of every Nigerian. There is no authority on the part of the Senate to suspend a legislature validly elected by the people of Nigeria, whom the person seeks to represent. The Supreme Court and Nigerian Judiciary, the 1999 Constitution frowns at it, and the suspension, to all intent and purposes, is not only repugnant to natural justice, equity, and good conscience, but incompatible with the provisions of the Constitution and the established principles of law ranging from decided cases by the Supreme Court and Court of Appeal, which forms part of sources of law in Nigeria. Section 4, subsection 8 of the 1999 Constitution provides, save as provided in this Constitution, the exercise of legislative powers of National Assembly or State Assembly shall be subject to the jurisdiction of the court, as the case may be. So the court has the power to conduct inquiry, and whatever they do in the National Assembly is subject to legislative powers of the court. Now, the Supreme Court of Nigeria and the Court of Appeal, in litany and cornucopia of cases, have handled situation of this and pronounced the absence of authority, legislative competence, and legislative powers of the National Assembly, be it Senate of Assembly or a representative, to suspend a legislative member.
Well, finally, we now go back to the story in Rivers State where the APC chairman in the state has called on Siminalayi Fubara, the governor of the state, to either resign or face impeachment. Well, this was after a raft of decisions by the Supreme Court, of course, in Abuja, saying that the governor should recognize the Martin Amewule-led assembly and represent the budget. So to give more legal perspective to this, I'm being joined by Evans Ufeli. Thank you so much, Evans, for staying with us to talk about this.
Sure, yeah.
All right, so APC chairman Rivers State, Attorney Okocha, accused Governor Fubara of abusing the rule of law. Has he committed an impeachable offense?
There's no impeachable offense whatsoever. It does not lie in the mouth of the APC chairman to determine who has committed an impeachable offense. I mean, he has no authority to make that expression. It's just that these days, everyone is just talking in that country. In Nigeria, everyone is talking. Even people who don't know primary laws are all talking, okay? It is wrong. If he has committed any impeachable infraction, the law is clear as to what should be done. It's the House of Assembly that will give him a notice of impeachment, okay, based on infractions for which he can also defend himself and also come out, and it's a long haul hog. The 7-man panel will be constituted by the chief judge of the state, and it is that 7-man committee that will determine whether or not your offense is impeachable, and then advise the State House of Assembly accordingly. Yeah. So you can't just say that. It's not does not lie in the party's authority to so do, whether the PDP or the APC.
All right. Well, we cannot take it away from the fact that the latest Supreme Court's judgments seem to have deepened the turmoil in the state with different parties interpreting the ruling to their advantage. But then what is your own interpretation to the latest Supreme Court's judgments?
The Supreme Court has asked him to go and represent the budget, okay? That, three members of the State House of Assembly cannot form a quorum to determine governance in the states or oversight or lawmaking in the states, okay? That's exactly what the court did, and the court had to stop their financial allocation and the rest of that, and then making the clear orders and consequential orders that the governor should go and comply with those directives, and then the governor have reached out to the State House of Assembly members to have this done. Before now, the State House of Assembly went ahead and gave the governor 48 hours within which to come and present an executive bill, and I find that very laughable. The level of legislative illiteracy in the Rivers State House of Assembly is unimaginable. An executive bill, a budget, an executive bill that details appropriation. It's the executive that owns it. The legislature cannot determine when that should be presented, even when there's a court order to that effect. The court order did not give a time limit within which the governor must comply, or within which the governor must go and make that budget available to the legislatures. So why the outburst of giving him 48 hours to come and present it? Otherwise, what? There's no law anywhere in the country. We need to, the people who represent us, they need to be trained. Okay, maybe in basic laws, okay, governance and the rest of that before they because this is very embarrassing. And that to say that this passed in the House, a House that have a committee on legal issue and all that none of them could, intercept that very wrong move. It's unfortunate. Okay, now the governor is reaching out to them, calling for, a kind of resolution so that you can have a peaceful compromise on what should be done so that their enumerations and all that will be given to them. And I think that is the way to go. The governor has done the right thing. So I don't want them to be deceived or be dissuaded by this expression coming from the chairman of the APC from the state that he should resign or what. That's not the right thing to do.
Okay.
So the party should caution.
All right. So earlier on you said that the party does not have the power to determine whether the governor can be impeached. And now the party is saying that, the governor has no constitutional power also to declare duly elected members of the State Assembly non-existent on the grounds of defection. So who or what has that power? Because certainly there seems to have been a political shift in the states.
If you look at the Constitution very clearly, you tell the Constitution expressly states that the dealings and decisions of either the State House of Assembly or the National Assembly shall be subjected to judicial review. Okay, that's clear. So where these members have defected from their political party to another political party, even though the Constitution says that they've lost their seats, it is not self-executory. It has to be subjected to judicial review. Judicial interpretation and judicial review, okay? And that is still pending before the Federal High Court, okay? Even though the Supreme Court has, in a way, by directing the governor to go back and present that budget, have in a way alluded indirectly to the fact that this people, their seat is still intact. Because the issue of their seat being vacant or not was not before the Supreme Court. Okay, it's before another court. But since the Supreme Court judgment came first, and now the Supreme Court have said that three members of the State House cannot, make up what a state legislature should be. Therefore, he should go and represent it to the larger house. Okay, that is the way the Supreme Court gave the judgment. And going to do that does not in any way undermine the case that is still pending that has to do with the actual infraction that has to do with their seats. Okay, so we should get it right. It is the court that will make the pronouncement as to whether their seats are vacant or not, because it's not self-executory. Since decisions and actions of the State House of Assembly and the National Assemblies are subject to judicial review, the court have that power and authority to so determine that expression of law in the Constitution.
All right. Now, we see that Governor Fubara seems to be fighting a political war on all fronts. From what you've seen so far, what actually do you think is oppositions really want in Rivers State? What do you think the best solution to this political quagmire is?
It's not even the lawmakers or the problem. The problem is Wike, who have consistently made sure that the state is ungovernable, because you have personal difference with the governor, and because the state house of assembly members were, they are loyal to Wike. So they too, they find themselves in that cup where they are not acting based on the direction, or so it seems, of Wike, and that's where the problem is coming from. Because if you look at the lawmakers since they were elected, they've not really enjoyed that legislative position and entrench themselves and learn and expand, make laws for the good governance of that state. Both them and the people are in constant battle with the governor and the rest of that. So I think Wike should allow that state to, to grow. He has been a governor, he's out of the place. He should allow the current governor to take charge and let the state house of assembly also work with a mind of their own. If Wike can get out of the way, you will see that there will be peace and harmony in that place. But as long as Wike is the one injecting and instigating this rancor by a show of superiority of power and the rest of that, there's no way they're going to have peace until someone gives in and allow peace to reign in the interest of the masses.
Thank you so much, Evan Sufeli, for sharing your thoughts with us.
A pleasure.
And now we continue in Kebbi State, northwest of Nigeria, where suspected Lakurawa terrorists have attacked Birnin Dede village, killing 13 people in what appear to be a reprisal to the killing of their leader, Maigemu, by a combined security force in Kebbi. The assailants set at least 8 villages on fire near Birnin Dede, all within the Arewa Local Government Area of Kebbi State. An eyewitness explained that the attackers spared only one village, which was guarded by the army. Recall that combined security forces with the support of Kebbi State Governor Nasir Idris recently killed the group's kingpin, Maigemu, as part of ongoing efforts to curb the activities of armed groups in the northwestern region of the state. Now, the Kano State Police Command says that it has arrested 4 suspected bandits from neighboring Katsina State. Speaking to journalists at the command's headquarters in Bompai, Kano, the state's police public relations officer, Aruna Kiyawa, says the sum of 1,028,800 naira was recovered from the suspects. And that, of course, there were also a purchase of an AK-47 rifle. Now, we tell you more with Emmanuel Bagudu bringing us the details in this report.
Despite the reduction in crimes bordering on insecurity in Kano State, several cases relating to terrorism are still recorded. These dangerous weapons and cash were allegedly recovered from 4 suspected terrorists arrested around the Hotoro area of the state. The police says that the terrorists are currently in detention, but won't be shown on camera.
Detectives, while on intelligence-led surveillance patrol, led by a Superintendent of Police, Ahmad Muhammad, the officer in charge of Jerkuka Outpost, intercepted 4 suspected bandits along Hotoro bypass near Chula filling station. These suspects were arrested. We have Shukurana Salihu, 25 years old, Rabiu Dahiru, 35 years old, Yao Idris, 30 years old, all from Katsina State, as well as their accomplice, one Mukhtar Sani, 30 years old of Hotoro Quarters, Kano. These suspects were arrested following credible intelligence information that They came to Kano with intent to buy an AK-47 rifle in order to add to their armory.
The public relations officer of the state, Haruna Kiawa, listed items recovered from the suspect, saying that investigations concerning the suspect will be discreet.
We have 3 locally made revolver pistols, 12 live ammunition of different calibers, 4 cartridges, 1 cutlass, 4 knives, 24 pieces of ball bearings called Boris, cash sum of 1,028,800 naira, as well as these suspected charms. These suspects are currently at the Command's Criminal Investigations Department, State CID here in Bombay, and they are undergoing discreet investigation, after which they will be charged to court for prosecution.
Kiawa commended the public for cooperating with the police and called for more synergy to end insecurity in the state. In Kano for News Central, Emmanuel Bagudu.
In other news, Muslim lawyers in Nigeria have dismissed the recent controversy surrounding the establishment of Sharia panels in Nigeria's southwestern states and other parts of the country. Speaking in the nation's capital, Abuja, they say that the establishment of Sharia panels in any region of the country, notably the southwest region, is a legitimate exercise of citizens' constitutional rights as provided in sections 37 and 38 of the Nigerian Constitution. They say the panels have been an effective means of handling family disputes among Muslims for over 2 decades.
Under the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999, Section 37, 38, 39, and Section 40 talks about Islamic human rights of each citizens of Nigeria. So for a Muslim, as a Sharia personal law, divorce, marriage, custody, and whatever is his personal right. So he doesn't need any consent from anybody to introduce that right, because as a Nigerian, he has that right to have a personal life as a Muslim wherever he finds himself in the country.
The call to action again is for us, the government of those states, to see to the fact that they are not helping their state if they do not provide institutions that need to take care of problems of Muslim family. So they have a duty, and it's a fundamental human right under Section 37, right to family life. So if a government of any state has not made provision for where Muslims will go to solve their family problem, then they are offending the provision of the Constitution of the Federal Republic.
Let's now tell you that affected residents of the demolitions in Keto area of Lagos State have brought their complaints to the State House of Assembly. The residents had in February called on the government to intervene and put a stop to the demolitions. Our correspondent, Bernard Akede, joined us earlier and gave us this update.
We have been following the story since February. In February, we got the call from the people you see behind me who are residents of a certain community in Ikosi, Ketu area, complaining about illegal demolitions of their structures. Some of them say that they have been living there since the 90s, but all of a sudden, demolition heavy equipment came in there and began to tear down some of the structures that we had in that place. Now, they claim that these demolition activities is done by the Oba of Ikosi land in Ketu there. We did make attempts to reach out to the Oba of Ikosi to hear his part of the story. We were told he wasn't around as at the time we went there, and his son, who had been interfacing with us, was also not around. And so what you're seeing now is the people have decided to come forward to the Lagos State House of Assembly because they say that the demolitions which were halted at a particular point in time have resurfaced again. They are complaining that it's looking like these demolitions are going to continue. We are still begging the Oba, not that we even want trouble for the Oba, we just want peace. But the Oba is saying that there's one name, one person, the agents. We don't understand what he meant by the agents. The ruling that we saw was that it was just 2 defendants. defendant is Olutunde Amole and Otenigba Biola. These are people that we don't even know. But some people claim that they have one landed property in the area. How come these two defendants changed to unknown persons? This is our problem. The Oba is refusing to talk to us furthermore. We had an engagement with him once, myself and the chairman of the CDA. These are members of the CDA crying out loud. People can no longer sleep in their homes because the fear is, the tension is there, the trauma is there. And nobody is talking. We need the government to come and address us publicly.
Coming up on the news, leaders of Sudan and South Sudan hold crucial talks following downing of a UN plane. We will tell you more when we are back. Stay with us. And I'll tell you that the leaders of Sudan and South Sudan held talks over the phone to discuss unrest in South Sudan. The discussions between Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, leader of Sudan's Sovereign Council, and South Sudanese President Salva Kiir dwelt on bilateral relations and issues of mutual concern. On Friday, a UN helicopter was targeted in Nasir city of the northeastern Upper Nile state while trying to evacuate soldiers, leaving at least 27 people dead. The UN said Friday's incident, which could deal a blow to an already fragile peace process, was utterly abhorrent and a possible war crime. South Sudan gained independence from Sudan after a referendum in 2011. Now, Syria's interim president, Ahmed al-Sharaa, has vowed to hold accountable anyone involved in the recent mass killings of civilians in the country's coastal regions. This statement comes after reports of violence in the Alawite heartland, which has left nearly 1,000 people dead since March 6. The violence, described as ethnic cleansing by the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, has targeted the Alawite minority in the Mediterranean coastal provinces of Latakia and Tartus. The escalating clashes between new security forces and loyalists of the former Assad regime have raised concerns, with multiple governments condemning the violence. Sharaa announced the formation of an independent committee to investigate the killings and hold those responsible accountable. The situation remains dire, with no signs of de-escalation as Syria grapples with deepening humanitarian crisis.
أؤكد أننا سنحاسب بكل حزم ودون تهاون كل من تورط في دماء المدنيين أو أساء إلى أهلنا ومن تجاوز صلاحيات الدولة أو استغل السلطة لتحقيق مأربه الخاص. فلن يكون هناك أي شخص فوق القانون، وكل من تلوثت يداه بدماء السوريين سيواجه العدالة عاجلا غير آجل. وبناء على ما سبق فإننا قد أعلنا عن تشكيل لجنة لتقصي الحقائق للنظر والتحقيق في أحداث الساحل وتقديم المتورطين إلى العدالة وكشف الحقائق أمام الشعب السوري ليعلم الجميع من المسؤول عن هذه الفتن والمخططات. كما سنعلن عن تشكيل لجنة عليا للحفاظ على السلم الأهلي.
Away from that, as global power shifts and new alliances take shape, questions are being asked about the relevance of the Commonwealth. Once a powerful link between Britain and its former colonies, the 56-member organization now faces fresh challenges, with trade, geopolitics, and history colliding. What does the future hold for the Commonwealth? For News Central Television, international correspondent Afia Hagen tells us more.
For decades, the Commonwealth has been a symbol of historical ties, cultural connections, and economic partnerships. Formed from the ashes of the British Empire, its members range from the world's largest democracy, India, to the small island nations in the Pacific. But today, in a rapidly shifting global order, its significance is under scrutiny. Does the Commonwealth still matter? At its heart, the Commonwealth promotes cooperation in trade, education, and governance. Collectively, its economies are worth over $13 trillion, accounting for 30% of the world's population. Advocates argue that Commonwealth ties create a unique advantage, offering trade opportunities, diplomatic support, and a platform for smaller nations to have a voice. But critics say the organisation lacks real influence. Unlike the EU or the African Union, the Commonwealth has no binding policies, no shared economy, and no military alliances. With Britain's global standing shifting after Brexit, there's a renewed push to make the Commonwealth a more effective force. But is that enough to keep members engaged? At the same time, major Commonwealth members like India and South Africa are looking beyond the organisation. India is prioritising BRICS, whilst African nations are strengthening ties with China and Russia. Experts say the Commonwealth must redefine its purpose if it hopes to stay relevant in the 21st century.
What relevance did it ever hold? Other than the fact that it seems to be Britain colonized a series of different places, and then Britain suddenly, after you had the colonial offices, so suddenly the colonial office becomes a Commonwealth office or so, and it moves forward from there. But the problem we have is that if you ask the average person, other than the fact that, okay, some leaders from, say, the African continent, amongst other places, get to come along and hobnob with royalty for, say, every so often or so during the Commonwealth meetings or something else like that, the actual real solid purpose of the Commonwealth or the benefits to the people of what is colloquially called the Commonwealth or so, the benefit to them is really hard to nail down.
Despite the challenges, the Commonwealth is evolving. Programmes supporting youth development, green energy and digital innovation offer a glimpse of what a modern Commonwealth could be. But whether it can transform itself into a truly global force or remain a relic of history remains to be seen.
And Britain's, I don't know, we're going through a period of decline of the national structure. The West is not what it used to be rapidly. And I think that the Commonwealth also forms part of that too, because as Britain increasingly looks weaker on the global stage, and the ties to America aren't as strong as they used to be, so the Commonwealth, which is already just seems to be a lot more of a symbolic institution, riddled in symbolic and symbolic regalia or so insignia, will itself start to have people questioning, why are we meeting once a year and what are we achieving?
With growing competition from emerging global blocs, the Commonwealth faces a defining moment. Can it reinvent itself for a new era, or will it fade into irrelevance? The coming years will decide its fate. For News Central, I'm Afia Hagan.
For more on this, I'm being joined by our international correspondent, Afia Hagan. Afia, nice to have you around. So what were the highlights from the King Charles's Commonwealth speech today?
So the Commonwealth service that takes place at Westminster Abbey begins within the next 20 minutes. And King Charles is talking about unity in his Commonwealth speech today. In his message, he will say, in these uncertain times where it's all too easy to believe our differences are problems instead of a source of strength and an opportunity for learning, the Commonwealth's remarkable collection of nations and peoples comes together in the spirit of support and, crucially, friendship. The Commonwealth's ability to bring together people from all over the world has stood the test of time and remains as ever important today. And King Charles at the moment is in quite a difficult position because he is straddling this really tightrope of diplomacy where he, as head of state of the United Kingdom, has to play friendly with President Donald Trump. But of course, the King has also been very supportive of Ukraine and President Zelensky. And we know that recently President Trump and Zelensky have had their differences. At the same time, the King is also the head of state of Canada. And President Trump is repeatedly saying that he wants to annex Canada and make it the 51st state. Now, as the head of state of Canada, he will act upon what the people want to do, what the Prime Minister wants to do. And Canada is overwhelmingly said that they will not be the 51st state. So he is at odds with Donald Trump over Canada, probably at odds with Donald Trump over Ukraine, but has to play nice with Donald Trump to make sure the United Kingdom remains in a good position with tariffs. Okay. So the King coming forward on Commonwealth Day with this message of unity is quite pertinent.
And we just watched your report. I mean, we can't take it away from the fact that there have been long questions asked about the colonial past of the Commonwealth. So does that affect its relevance?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, at this point, the Commonwealth is facing calls for reparations, right? That reparations should be made, monetary reparations, reparations in kind, acknowledgement of wrongdoing in the past by the British colonial system. And those calls are getting louder from the nations of Africa and also from the Caribbean. At the same time, you have countries like Jamaica and potentially Australia and Canada that are looking at removing the monarch as a head of state and therefore not being part of the Commonwealth anymore. Remember, you have the 14 states where the king is head of state, and then you have the wider Commonwealth that come together for apparently trade and wealth initiatives. But you have countries that are looking to be part of none of that whatsoever. And yes, the calls for reparations that are getting louder, and the fact that some countries want to remove the king as head of state and leave the Commonwealth will affect its relevance going forward.
And with this removal and the annexation issues, what does the future of the Commonwealth look like now?
Well, the Commonwealth, unless it decides to strengthen itself and have some real sort of, military capability or coming together to have trade opportunities, is it kind of just this organisation that gets together and every 4 years has an Olympic-style sporting event? The Commonwealth Games, they're taking place in Glasgow in 2026. Is that the reason for these countries to come together? Well, the Commonwealth has to really find its place in a world that has shifted very geopolitically from when the Commonwealth started all those years ago. And unless it finds that place and defines what it is and it really becomes useful, then it will cease to be relevant as we go forward.
Afe, again, thank you so much for sharing these updates with us. In business, last week, Group Chairman of the NGX Group, Dr. Omar Koiranga, said he looks forward to the NGX market cap hitting 100 trillion naira this year. Earlier today on Business Edge with Petra Fasimi Peter, she asked Tajuddin Ibrahim, Director of Research and Strategy, Chapel Hill Denham Securities, what impact could NNPCL's planned listing contribute to the NGX's outlook? Let's take a listen.
As soon as possible. If it does not materialize this year, I think we should expect it to materialize next year. When NNPC, a giant in the oil and gas space, gets listed on the exchange, it will surely bring higher market capitalization and further lift the market cap towards the 100 trillion naira target of the chairman of the NGX board. So I see it as a positive thing. If it does not happen this year, I think next year looks like.
Away from that, the Securities and Exchange Commission has cautioned the public against dealing with MyShare, operating as UYG Multitrade Limited, labeling it an illegal capital market operator. SEC stated that the firm falsely presents itself as an investment advisor fund manager despite lacking registration. Investors are urged to avoid transactions with the entity to prevent fraud and financial loss. The Commission reiterated that engaging with unregistered and unregulated firms in Nigeria's capital market poses serious risks, emphasizing the importance of verifying investment platforms before committing funds. In sports, top African table tennis stars Egypt's Omara Sarr and Nigeria's Quadri Aruna are set to compete in the WTT Champions Chongqing 2025, battling for a share of the $100,000 prize pool. Sarr, the 2025 ITTF Africa Cup champion, and Aruna are among the top 32 men's singles players, alongside Africa's top female players, Hannah Goda and Dina Meshrev of Egypt. Sarr faces Germany's Dan Ku on March 12, while Aruna takes on world number 2 Wang Shuqing of China in their first ever competitive meeting. In the women's category, Goda, fresh from reclaiming her Africa Cup title, faces South Korea's Shu Yubing, while Meshrev confronts Kim Na-young of Korea. This inaugural WTT Champions event will run from March 11 to 16, 2025. And that's all at this hour. But before we go, we'll look at our top stories again. All Progressives Congress has told Rivers State Governor Siminalayi Fubara to resign or be impeached. Former Kaduna State Governor Nasir El-Rufai has dumped APC for SDP ahead of 2027 elections. We also told you that high-level talks were underway between Sudan and South Sudan after the downing of a UN plane on evacuation mission in Sudan. Do send your eyewitness report to the WhatsApp number on the screen, and you can follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. Do watch us live on DSTV channel 422, GoTV channel 23, StarTimes 274, Avo TV, and YouTube. Many thanks for watching. I am Lekon Onobanjo.